Hello, people. My name is Marcia Cristina, author of the books Ethics in Workplace and Ethical Conduct in Corporate Sustainability. My long, inglorious journey for showing the leaders of large companies the importance of investing in education for the development of ethical awareness began in 2009 when I launched my first book, Ethics in Workplace, a frank conversation about the ethical conduct of employees. Editora Campos Elsevier, Rio de Janeiro. I started very animated, believing it would be not difficult to demonstrate the effectiveness of this strategy to reduce operational risks, reduce costs, often even perceiving invisible costs, wastage, and mainly another important outcome, the improvement in the quality of coexistence in the workplace. Also, as a result, it was expected to improve the emotional health of employees, reduce labor actions, improve talent retention, and promote the company's institutional image. In addition to all these advantages, there was one less effect that would theoretically make the strategy irrefutable: the low cost of the project. After all, implementing a new culture requires effort, determination, and commitment of leaders, but does not require investments in physical structures, equipment, or other larger materials. So, why were there no interest from managers in hiring lecturers or consulting services? It took me some time to understand. One of the clues came through my social media channels, mostly Facebook at that time. I noted in the comments that the public interested in the subject was formed by workers without a leadership function. It became clear to me why there was no interest on the part of the managers. The thing was not interesting because of a single and fundamental item. It was necessary to compromise the leaders. In meetings, everything used to be going very well until I got to the part where I explained about the example of conduct that needs to be presented by the leaders. Why do managers responsible for strategy decisions prefer not to invest in the implementation of the ethical conduct culture? Simple. Everyone wants their teams to have ethics, but no one wants to be in charge of being an example of ethical behavior. When the leaders realized that to be an example of conduct, they must be transparent about the criteria for promoting or hiring people. That means the history of privileging the darlings without giving satisfaction to others has to stop. Control your own actions and reactions in relationships within the company, better explaining, and no rudeness, lies, shoutings, or sarcasm. Transparency of criteria in decisions on projects to be developed. Respect the code of ethics with regard to the impossibility of accepting graces from customers, suppliers, and other institutions that maintains relationships with the company. And more. Apply punishments to those involved in ethical deviations, regardless of the position and operational results presented by the accused. Disregard performance achieved irregularity, where rules and parameters were disrespected to obtain more expressive results. Commitment to the truth with what they promise and with what they speak in relation to their own attitudes. This is very complicated. Meet schedules like all of their team. Establish rules valid for everyone, regardless the power level of the positions they hold. Frame decisions within the ethical principles of justice, morality, honesty, and respect for people, or rather, with empathy. Wow. Very, very complicated. The list could be longer. But I think it is already clear that these are very inconvenient demands for those who actually are free to act as they want without having to give any satisfaction and counting with the certainty of impunity for misconduct, as long as the actions are not related to operational and financial deviations. This is only the situation that they really have to respond. So, because of this, I decided to take a break. I stopped producing material and let it go. At that time, companies began to invest in compliance areas. They understood that it was the way to prevent errors, deviations, and other irregularities. Yes, undoubtedly, the compliance area has a great importance and certainly has been playing a relevant role. Many companies have embedded corporate ethics actions under the compliance umbrella. It is beautiful to see this. The code of ethics is stamped on websites and printed on abandoned booklets on bookshelves in all sectors, full of dusty. The Ethics Committee evaluating and punishing deviations of some, especially those who did not occupy relevant functions. They just failed to change the minds of those who were determined to effect deviations, mask results, and adopt the shortcuts to achieve results. Exactly what I was speaking about. But was the workplace hostile? Oh, that is part of it. The important thing is to increase productivity, profitability, and competitiveness. Do what? If the guy can achieve and even overcome the results, what is the importance of the means and the way he uses it? No, this is not important. Okay, let's go on. So, in 2018, I published the second book, Ethical Conduct and Corporate Sustainability, editora Alta Books, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, where I focus on the importance of ethical conduct of leadership. This time, I focus on the dissemination of the book to the universities of business administration, marketing, and human resource, both in Brazil and Portugal, where I started to live. I insisted until I talked with the coordinator of disciplines of one of the most important Portuguese business universities, and she told me after I explained my approach. The content of your work is very interesting, but companies are not interested in this. To be clear, if companies are not concerned about this, why will the university include this type of matter in its curriculum? To train administrators who will bring constraints to managers and compromise the good concept of the university? Better not. Give me a break. It was a shock. I understood that she spoke a great truth, and I was wasting time and wearing myself out for nothing. And so I kept writing articles and feeding my channels, basically feeling I'm doing my part, like I'm doing it because I believe this is the right and that in the future those responsible will have evolved enough to realize the validity of my proposal. Now, in 2022, when the WHO recognized burnout syndrome as a reason for leaving work, and I understand that this syndrome originates from the lack of ethical conduct that makes environment hostile and sick, I imagine that the time had come to return with more effective work. That's why I returned with the videos, now in a more structured way. In English, I made just a few, but in my Portuguese language channel, I made more. However, now, last June, another great disappointment shook my hopes. The ethical scandal that occurred in the Caixa Econômica Federal Bank. There were many complaints of moral and sexual harassment that ended up overthrowing the then president of the bank, himself the main agent of the harassment. The most discouraging was to know that many colleagues preferred to keep their mouths shut, pretend that they were not realizing the harmful attitudes of the president, who ended up contaminating other managers. Of course, after all, the example comes from above, right? If the president does, so can I. Does it make sense? I think it does. Exactly at Caixa, a public bank where I worked for many years, responsible for much of my academic and practical training in the business area. It is true that it was in Caixa that I observed many behaviors that inspired the writing of my first book, which was almost a catharsis to put out my indignation at the lack of consequences for so many questionable attitudes that I witnessed there. But there were attitudes present in all companies. Caixa was one of the pioneers companies in the implementation of a good ethics program. From the early years of the 21st century, the complaints channel was available so that everyone could report inappropriate conduct. But they lacked to invest in the development of the ethical awareness of the team. Exactly what I was talking about. They failed to apply the policy of consequences to all who presented deviations and not only to the unprotected of luck. I attempted sometimes to be heard by Caixa managers. After all, I was there. I knew some of them, but total inability to be considered by those who could have bought my idea. I'm very discouraged, rethinking my positions and strongly evaluating the possibility of giving up. I leave the books, I leave articles and videos that, who knows, someday may serve smaller companies that want to take care of the ethical conduct of their teams and especially their leaders. The leaders, examples of conduct that guide future generations. They are the leaders of the new leaders who will, in the future, be occupying the positions of power. What I still see today is a lot of people who say,
boss has to be bad, has to be mean, because if they are not, they will not be obeyed and respected.
my God. Many people still think this way. They are still right. After all, the development of ethical awareness is not yet part of business actions. So it is not yet clear and proven that the good leader has to be admired for his attitudes. Never feared. From there, they will conquer the confidence of the teams. They will awaken the motivation, commitment, and respect of their teams. Besides, who doesn't like having a nice boss? There is also the retention of talent, the growth of the company, and a productive and pleasant work environment at the same time. But all this is still dream in the vast majority of companies, with rare and honorable exceptions. So that's it. I will stop and I'm available if you have some doubts. I will let my mail in the description of this video, but I try to practice my English. I know it's far from being good, but who knows? In the future, that's it. If you like the video, don't forget, tell me you like it, share, and still subscribe the video, the channel, because maybe one day, who knows, I'll be back. Bye, people. See you any day. Who knows? Bye.